How's it going, guys? Happy New Year to each and every one of you. I hope you're all as happy as I am to just be saying goodbye to 2020. But for my first video of the year, I figured I'd take a look at some of the players that will be spending time in the Premier League for the year of 2021, specifically the best young players in the year. I'm going to make my best starting 11 out of the available young players. By young, I'm going for the criteria set by the PFA Young Player of the Year award, which is basically just that the player has to have been 23 years old at the start of the season. I think this is a little bit old. It means some players can be closer to 25 than 20 by the time they win the award. I think Gareth Bale was an example of that. But hey, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. So let's dive in. In goal, I have Dean Henderson, and to be honest, my options for goalkeeper were quite limited because goalkeepers don't really tend to be young. But this was more than just picking the best of a bad lot situation, because Dean Henderson definitely earned his spot in this team. Last season for Sheffield United, he made a number of fantastic saves, kept a ton of clean sheets, kept them in a lot of games. There's a reason why Man United brought him back. It's not just to play second fiddle to David De Gea. He's already gotten some game time this season. I think he's a fantastic player with a fantastic future, and he's easily the best young goalkeeper in the Premier League. In right back, I've Trent Alexander-Arnold, to the surprise of none, I'm sure, but this wasn't the shoe-in that it seems like. I gave serious consideration to Reece James, Wan-Bissaka, Tariq Lamptey, who makes me cry every time I see him, and remember we sold him for just £3 million. But at the end of the day, in this modern era of fullbacks who essentially play as wingers, bombing up and down their flank, it doesn't really get any better than Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's got a fantastic delivery on him. His defensive work rate is equal to that, despite the fact that some think he just wants to live up the far end of the pitch. Even if you were to look at fullbacks on the whole, across all ages, across more than just the Premier League, I think Trent Alexander-Arnold is up there with the best, if not the best of the best, and he's also in my team. At my first centre-back position, I'm going with Joe Gomez. A lot of people think that he was just carried by Virgil van Dijk for all of last season. I couldn't disagree more. I think that he's got exceptional pace, defensive awareness. He's stronger than he looks. He was a big part of Liverpool's title-winning team last season, even though he was only about 22 years old at the time. So I have absolutely no qualms about putting him in this team. In as my second centre-back, I've gone for Ruben Diaz, and this one took a little bit more consideration because at Manchester City he hasn't quite convinced me just yet. He seems to have convinced Pep Guardiola because he's getting a lot of game time ahead of the likes of Aymeric Laporte and Nathan Ake. But I do know that from his Benfica days, this lad is a fantastic defender. He's take no prisoners, which I absolutely love for my centre-backs. And I didn't have to scrape the barrel to pick him out. He was pretty much an obvious choice against quite a few others in the Premier League. But he still has a bit of a way to go to prove himself to get into maybe the actual team this season. In left back, I've got Ben Chilwell. Honestly, this was a straight battle between him and Reguilon. I could say that I tossed a coin to choose between them. That would be a lie. Really, I just used my Chelsea bias. Reguilon was fantastic with Sevilla last season, and he's been fantastic with Tottenham so far this season. But the same goes for Ben Chilwell, who was, I think, the best left back in the year, second to Robertson last season while playing with Leicester. This season for Chelsea, maybe been a bit inconsistent, but the games where he has played well, he's been absolutely exceptional. It kind of took me by surprise that he's as young as he is. I thought he was maybe a few years older, but no, still only in his young 20s. Got a long future ahead of him. Hopefully all of that at Chelsea. Gonna get a ton of England caps as well, I'm sure. So here's to him. In as my first central midfielder, I've gone for Wilfred Ndidi. At first I was tempted to just go with two attacking midfielders to keep the list looking a bit more exciting. But honestly, Wilfred Ndidi just been too good to ignore over the last few seasons. Last season in particular, he made more successful tackles than any other player in the Premier League, which, when you consider the likes of N'Golo Kante play in the Premier League, it's pretty damn impressive. He's the oldest player in the team. He just turned 24, but still has a long future ahead of him, and I can't wait to keep watching him absolutely crunch players. As my second midfielder, bit tougher to pick this one. The options were kind of down to Mason Mount, Yuri Tielemans, and James Maddison. But since I already have Wilfred Ndidi in the team, I figured I'd use the fact that he's out and out defensive to just go for an out and out offensive midfielder for my second choice. So I'm going with James Maddison. He's been fantastic for Leicester. His creative play is second to very few in the Premier League. He's up there. Okay, no, he's not up there with the likes of Kevin De Bruyne. I won't say that. But in 3 years, he might be. He's definitely on the right track if he can keep himself fit, because injuries have been a bit of a problem for him. He was injured at the start of this season, came back, was a bit out of form, didn't look up to the pace, but in his last maybe 2-3 games, he definitely has looked like he's a bit more at it, and he probably will just improve from there. On the right flank, I've gone for Richarlison. He had competition here from the likes of Jared Bowen and Ferran Torres. The stiffer competition probably came from Torres, who's been fantastic for Manchester City at times this season. But Richarlison is a type of player that he's kind of hormonal. How he plays depends on his mood, and his mood always looks like he's scowling. But no, he does turn it on and off. But when it's on, he's an exceptional player. He looks like he's just impossible to defend against. And when he looks to have an eye for goal, he just pops up everywhere in the box and he finishes from every angle. He doesn't show it enough. He's not on it all the time, which I think takes away from him, because you can tell he's the type of player that wants to be great. He's got the Brazilian flair, but he just needs to focus up a bit more, get a bit more consistent, and he'll be breaking into any team, not just my young Premier League team. On the left flank, I've gone for Christian Pulisic. His main competitor here was Bukayo Saka. He's only 19, playing for Arsenal. I think he's going to be a great player, but we've seen a bit more from Christian Pulisic. I mean, he's the captain of the US national team. Very hard to ignore his performances last season, particularly after lockdown ended. This season, he started off terribly by being injured. Kind of had to ease his way back into things after that. But he's looking back to his best now. He looks like he's willing to terrorise any defence that he comes up against. So I can't wait to see more of him. Up front, I'm starting Marcus Rashford, who has just been a revelation for Man United ever since he came into the team to score the winner against Arsenal in his Premier League debut when he was like 10 years old or something. Since then, he's gone on to be one of the most deadly, dangerous attacking players in the Premier League, still only very young. He's also shown himself to be a fantastic human being. All his work that he does for charity probably would have been enough to get into this team alone. But at the moment, he's part of a Man United side that I think plays quite fantastic attacking football. They don't always get the appreciation they deserve, even from me, I will say. But Marcus Rashford, fantastic guy, fantastic player, got a fantastic future ahead of him. In my final spot, I'm giving it to Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I've always been a fan of two players up front. You can call it big guy, little guy. Not really the case here. Dominic Calvert-Lewin isn't that much bigger than Marcus Rashford. But you get the gist. Marcus Rashford's in there for the twinkle toes and the intricate passes. Dominic Calvert-Lewin is in there to bulldoze his way through defences, to score headers, to bully defenders. So I think that the dynamic still works. Dom, he's always shown great heart when playing for Everton. The finishing wasn't always there until this season. He's really evolved under Ancelotti. He's shown what he can do. He knows now to just stay in and around that 6-yard box, and he can poach goals all day long. He's been doing it all season long so far, and he will continue to do it because he seems to have already mastered it at a very young age. And yeah, he gets my final spot in this team. Anyway, lads, that wraps up what I think is the best starting 11 in the Premier League if you're just counting the young players. Comment below whether you would have put in different players in different positions to what I have. Like if you did enjoy, subscribe for more footy chats, and hopefully see you all in the next video.